My lovely, lovely, wonderful, beautiful, handsome people. A pleasant evening to everybody, or morning rather, actually. So, lovely people, I bought the Weekend Star. When was it? Yesterday or the day before? And I noticed something as the caption, the heading Secret Sex Club in Church. Let's read. Every week after the sanctuary empties and the pastor goes home, his wife, Candy, why that name Candy Boy, stays behind. What happens next? She insists it is not sin but ministry, albeit of a sexual nature. Inside the same church where sermons of obedience and restraint are preached, Candy runs a secret sex club for women who feel their marriages or their lives lack passion. For the past 5 years, she has led structured prayer and counseling sessions at a mid sized church. But behind closed doors, those sessions turn into something crazy. The group, sometimes consisting of up to 25 women, engage in orgies with men recruited by Candy. Female participants are required to make financial contributions for their sinful pleasure while also giving handsomely to the church's building fund. I didn't see what. Okay, this is. I don't know who is going to be speaking now, so let's read it in quotations. I didn't see what I was doing as sin, Candy said about the creation of the sex club in the church. I saw it as ministry. Meeting women where they were and dealing with realities the church prefers not to talk about. The activity was never documented, never discussed, never written down. It relied entirely on implication, selective invitation, and silence. In practice, what I organized wasn't counseling in the traditional sense, Candy admitted. The gathering happened after church and involved consensual sexual activities, all kinds of sexual activities you can think of, she told the Star. People, I really want to come in hard, but let's continue reading. One former member, Mariah, said she was drawn to the secret club because her bedroom had become boring. In my marriage, intimacy had started to feel transactional. She said it was expected, not shared. However, the activities in the church building provided her with sinful pleasure. It blew her mind beyond expectations. These encounters lasted longer, they were more passionate, more exploratory, she said. We do things I'd never imagined could be done. I have been taught things I never imagined existed, with straps and whips, just wild stuffs. Just wild stuffs. There's an S on it, she said. Like the other women in the church sex club, Mariah said her journey to the dark room was unplanned. In fact, she went to Candy for counseling. We were talking about faith, then loneliness, then the parts of the marriage nobody in church ever asks you about, she related. A caged animal in her was dying to come out. It wanted to experience something more. It was. I'm laughing, but it's really not a serious one. Sorry, it is a serious laugh. My apology. It wanted to experience something more than the missionary drag being experienced at home. And so she acted. I was tired of carrying the image of being a good Christian wife while feeling emotionally and physically disconnected at home, Mariah said. Candy participates in the same system she organizes. I wasn't standing outside of it, she said. I used it too. In my mind, that mattered. The pastor's wife says her ministry grew out of the role she already occupied within the church. I handle women's counseling, spiritual mentorship, Lord, and follow-up prayer, she said. Women would come to me talking about their marriages and relationships. They were faithful, doing everything the church asks, but they were all sexually frustrated and ashamed to say it out aloud. The church has no language for that. Closed doors, confidential conversations, irregular hours. That was normal. That role gave me access and it gave me cover. She added, all we talk about is restraint and submission. We don't talk about desire, satisfaction, and agency. I believe ignoring that reality was doing more harm than addressing it. I created a very safe space for these women. She described a consistent routine follow up regular services. Everything shifted away from the main sanctuary into the side rooms, Candy said. Women left in staggered intervals so it wouldn't draw attention. The pastor usually left early, probably tired, while the women, I'm not going to read all of it, people. While the women's ministry continued into the late evening. Candy said secrecy was necessary to protect both her husband and the church, arguing that disclosure would have destroyed his ministry, his faith, and his sense of purpose. Listen to me now, beautiful people. I can quote a number of passages from the book of Galatians that talks about sexual immorality and staying away from all of these things. The orgies and the whatnot in different sections from the Old Testament to the New Testament. But that would prove futile in some sense. In other words, it's almost like a barrage of scriptures to, instead of it becoming a healing, a transformation, a conviction, and then a healing and deliverance, you don't want it to be like a band-aid on a sore. So we know the Bible beastly speaks against sexual immorality, which include these orgies. Now listen to me. You know why I'm chuckling? If you noticed in the first section of what I read, the women had to pay money. The women had to pay money as well as making large contributions to the regular ministry. Listen to me, people. There are wolves in sheep clothing. There are wolves in sheep clothing. This is all gimmickry. The lady devised a way that she knew would have solidified her getting money from these people. This is clear-cut exploitation. This is clear-cut exploitation. These things, do you know the annihilation and the serious damage that this could cause if these husbands were to find out that this particular wife engaged in something of the sort? Huh? You think it's everybody that says, Lord, Lord, shall enter? In other words, what the scripture is saying, I know everybody will say, Lord, Lord is of me. I remember listening to a man who used to be a devil worshipper. And part of his ritual was that he would send the women who were a part of his movement to go into the church. They were witches. I was listening to a three and odd hours long, testimony or whatever you would want to call it. And he said he would send them into the churches to create and to wreak havoc in the church. And sometimes these pastors are really genuine, but something is lacking. It's discernment. You know why? Their discernment got strangled and stifled through this obnoxious busyness. Let me call it that way. This busy schedule. Because if you notice, she said the pastors would leave early, maybe because they're tired. Could be they have something else. Because I find it very strange that not one of these husbands realize that something is off. Why is it that every Sunday or every when their wives are gone at a particular time? Unusual as church women. You know what I mean? Well, maybe they tell them say it's a women's ministry and all of that, but not a red flag. Something doesn't seem off when they come back home. Something doesn't seem off. If it were the other sex, meaning if it was a man going out doing all of that and he comes back in, trust me, the woman could have bathed a little more and not use any cologne or whatever. The woman would smell something is off from less than a mile away. Well, 2 miles, 3 miles away. There are wolves in sheep clothing. They will look any and every way to exploit women. She knew that this was a sure way, because for a long time women have been complaining about the churchmen not satisfying them. So them sit down, these little wolves sit down and devise a way to earn money. Ladies, be careful, because you know that all of that was not of God. Anyway, guys, you know what to do with TikTok and YouTube. Subscribe, give me one of those lines, and you can follow me on Instagram.